I'm just gonna say it. The pirate dude looks like a brute from Halo had a baby with Swamp Thing. And I'm here for it. Hello interwebs, I hope you're all doing well. I am here to review the latest episode of Star Wars The Mandalorian, this time Chapter 21, The Pirate. Before we get started, I'm just going to say up front, I do apologize if my energy level is a little bit lower for this review. Unfortunately, I've had to spend today writing a script about a topic that is honestly kind of depressing. And I literally just finished the script right before watching this episode, which this episode definitely boosted my spirit because I had a lot of fun with it. But if you're noticing a little bit of a lack of energy, that's the reason why. Anyways, I was very much bolstered by this episode in my spirits because this was another great episode of the show, most especially on the back of the fact that this is the first episode that really has started to feel like it's bringing together the disparate threads that we've been seeing this season and starting to weave them together. I think a lot of us has felt that this season has been very disjointed. There's a lot of stuff that I've really liked, like the New Republic stuff from episode 3, the sort of going to Mandalore, the planet stuff, Bo-Katan stuff with Grogu. Like, I've liked all of that in isolation, but it's been really difficult to sort of see where the direction of this season has been going, and this episode very much felt like it was actually starting to bring all of those threads together. And not just that, doing so in a way that I found to be really exciting because it's showcasing a desire by this show to start to have a larger scale political ramifications for the Star Wars universe. I think a lot of us have felt since the beginning of The Mandalorian that there's been some desires to pull at threads between the original Star Wars trilogy and the sequel Star Wars trilogy, most notably with whatever was going on with those Empire folks wanting to steal Grogu, and then some stuff with the Darksaber. But this season has really, especially this episode, started to feel like, okay, I can see that they are trying to actually build a much grander plan going into the sequel trilogy as well as possibly beyond it, and I think this episode is really starting to showcase that. Let's get into some of the specifics, because we have a really interesting political situation here, because we have Navarro under attack by pirates, and it's the same Swamp Thing pirate dude from the first episode of this season. Love seeing him. And it creates a situation where Carl Weathers has to call for New Republic help, but is not actually a part of the New Republic. So we have our Captain Teva, who's the New Republic guy that we saw, I think, way back even in Season 2, last season, sort of going to the New Republic and saying, hey, we should help these people. But we start to get a sense that the New Republic is kind of too stretched thin at the moment, but also kind of bureaucratically ineffective. It's sort of saying well, we don't wish to lend aid to anybody who isn't part of our member world. We don't really care about them. And I love that this is enabled a lot by Kane, the sort of Moff Gideon. I'm sort of getting the opinion now that she's sort of like a Moff Gideon plant in the New Republic as part of the amnesty program, because it is clear what she's trying to do as a fascist, trying to pretend like she's part of the New Republic order. She believes in democracy again. She was liberated, as she said, is trying to stoke that sense of bureaucratic inaction within the New Republic, because where fascism thrives and is allowed to grow and fester is when people feel that democracy isn't actually working for them, when it becomes so basically ineffective due to bureaucracy and sort of stalling out and its institutions failing, that it leaves people wanting a more authoritarian or imperialistic thing who can just yeah, we got a strongman, totalitarian emperor who can come in here and get things done. So Kane is quite clearly, in her own small little way, trying to stoke that because she is seeing this happening on the Outer Rim. And if she can get the Outer Rim worlds like Navarro to fall to the sort of growing Imperial control that I'm assuming Moff Gideon is trying to build up in the background, that might even be tying into Thrawn or the beginning of the First Order, as we see in the sequels, any of those things, we don't really know for sure just yet, then they can use that as an opportunity to start building a base of action within the Outer Rim, destabilize those areas, and then come in and start destabilizing further the New Republic, because they sort of get a ground out in those areas. So I think her hope is to sort of leave Navarro just sort of out with no help, and then they can sort of, the Imperial, Moff Gideon, whoever can sweep in and take action. I love that that is being stoked quite literally by fascists who have come into the New Republic and started stoking this bureaucratic inaction within it. But it was actually part of the New Republic's own sort of desires to begin with. It's stoking the flames of democratic inaction, but it is showcasing the bureaucratic ineptitude of this government in and of itself. So I really thought this was great, and showcasing the frustration of a character like Teva was really cool. Also, I should say I love the New Republic bar that we get to see in the like purple dude. Was that the guy from frickin' Rebels? I didn't remember his name, and it's been a hot minute since I watched Rebels, but the dude who was talking to Teva at the bar, is that the guy from Rebels? I don't remember his name. It's been too long. I remember like the other characters from Rebels, but I don't remember his name. But it'd be cool if that was actually him. I would be very excited if that was him, actually. Let me know in the comments if that was who that was. And remind me of his name. It's been too long. But I do like then, though, we do cut over to the Mandalorians, and we have Teva going to them because he's like, look, you're the only people that can save these people. And I like little hints of their sort of like, look, he's found us. We have to move now. He's like, look, I understand. I'm not going to tell anybody, but you should do this. And we have this great debate within the Mandalorians saying, like, we should go and save them. And I love the one dude who's like, look, I've had my issues with the rest of these folks, but they stood up for me. And I think we should go and help these people because that's what Mandalorians do. And I'm like, oh, I love this. I love it when people's like, we do the right thing no matter what. Like, we sacrifice, we do the right thing, we fight for the people who need it. And I love that they go and do it, and they kick ass, and it was a cool little action sequence. I don't really have much to say on it, but it does lead to them being rewarded. Like, you know, Carl Weathers, Magistrate Carl Weathers, High Magistrate Carl Weathers, basically says, like, I'll give you our huge tracts of land, and we'll allow you to build a home here. And they are able to sort of be integrated into that society for coming to their rescue. I thought that was it was really great, and I like that the armorer says to Bo-Katan, like, look, I understand that you are part of two worlds after this, and you can take off your helmet because I think you can start to bring together the different tribes, that we shouldn't be separated anymore. We should come together, unite, and bring Mandalore together. And I like this because I'm curious to see, now that we're sort of seeing the storyline with the failing New Republic, if they're starting to set up like the Mandalorians sort of becoming a big political power in the galaxy post the sequel movie era, because we don't really know what's happened after the Rise of Skywalker, so maybe the Mandalorians will play a larger part by recapturing Mandalore and sort of this sort of like gathering together the political force that Bo-Katan can sort of represent of the gathering of the different tribes going forward. Like, I'm really curious to see where that story is ultimately going to go with her, and so I really, really loved it. So yeah, I think this episode, for me, I think did a great job of sort of creating an interesting political landscape for us. And it also, we see Moff Gideon was, rescued by potentially Mandalorians. And I'm curious if that's a group of Mandalorians that Bo-Katan worked for, if it was a setup to frame the Mandalorians for Moff Gideon's rescue. I'm very curious to see where that storyline is going to go. I'm actually even kind of shocked that the Imperial remnants / the First Order or whatever's out there, Moff Gideon's side, didn't come in to save Navarro and say, hey, we'll save you, but you have to come back under Imperial control. I'm actually surprised that didn't happen. So I'm kind of curious to see where that storyline is ultimately going with Moff Gideon and everything. I'm very intrigued by it, let's just say. If it is leading to, the First Order or a Snoke or Thrawn, I think any of those are potentially possible, and I'm really kind of curious to see it. Ultimately, the one knock I can really say is honestly the storyline that intrigues me the least in this season so far, especially as showcased by this episode, is our man Din and Grogu. Like, I'm not, it's not like I don't care about them, but they're kind of the least interesting storyline to me. Like, now they're just sort of characters there is like, yeah, I want to see Din and Grogu sort of grow together and become a, father-son-child pairing sort of thing. But they don't really seem to have any real importance to the grander scheme of the narrative. They just sort of seem to be another member of the group of Mandalorians in that tribe. So I'm honestly curious to see how centralized a protagonist that, Din or Grogu is going to be going forward, because they seem very ancillary to everything going on this season. So curious on that front. Other than that, though, this was great. I adored this. I'm really curious to see where this season's going in its last 3 episodes. Took a little bit long to get going, probably longer than it should have, but I am very excited to see what they're setting up. So that's my thoughts on this episode of The Mandalorian. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves. Like I said, it's been a rough day for me, and I'm sure for many others. So please take care of yourselves, and I hope you all, my friends, live long and prosper.